Center, the chairperson discouraged this act, saying civil servants who will be found to have done this will be punishable by law.
With the aim of ensuring Emaswati have easy access to government services, the Ministry of Dinkhundla Administration and Development through the decentralization program is rolling out service centers in some Dinkhundla. The Civil Service Commission has already hired staff members for the service centers. The chairperson Simanga Mamba visited the Lobamba in Nkundla, where he implored staff members to work together and not in isolation. He further sounds a strong warning not only to staff members at the service center, but all civil servants to desist from publicizing information belonging to people who have come to seek services from government offices. The chairperson continues to say such acts are against the law and are punishable.
Lesibhekile kusebenta ngekuzimisela nangekwethembeka lokuye kulimade sive kakhulu indaba yokuthi ema records akagcineki abe imfihlo umuntu akacwayise lokho bantu nabeda la batele kutofuna lusido tindzaba tabo akafanele ukuthi bese sethi yafohla noma sethi yalikha sekushuthiwe ukuthi bani bekete lapha kanjani njani futhi ke ema officers kufuna akhumbule ukuthi kugcina phela ema records ngemfihlo kumgcokwa futhi uma kwendekile wangakwendi lokho kanjalo kulicala lelo lelingagcine lende umuntu alahlekelwe ngumsebenzi.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Dinkhundla Administration and Development, Nonhlanhla Dlamini, says some of the services offered at the Lobamba in Nkundla include social welfare services, passports, all certificates and revenue services, to name a few.
Sinawufika nje enkundleni kaLobamba uyawathola immigration services, uyakhona ukuthatha ipassport, uyathatha certificate talo lonke lihlobo sekutalwa sekushada nesekshona, uyawathola ema-services aka-social welfare, uyawathola nema-services ase-library, uyathola ne-revenue office lapho khona ubhadalela khona onke lama-services wendlule, uwathole nema-services aka-veterinary. So kuyinkundla nje leseyicishe icukethe konke ema-services ladingwa abantu.
The Civil Service Commission says it will look for ways to use the facilities at the Nkundla to also decentralize their services. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Langamandla with Mbongwa Dube, Lobamba.
If we don't do it, who will? Those are the words of Standard Bank Chief Executive Mvuselelo Fagutse, who says all men have the responsibility to protect women and not harm them. Fagutse has said this when Standard Bank handed over solar panels worth about 300,000 emalangeni to Eswatini Women's Center on Tuesday.
As Tuesday was a day where the world celebrated women, Standard Bank did the same, but differently. The bank donated solar panels worth about 300,000 emalangeni to Eswatini Women's Center, a home for young women who are going through rehabilitation. The donation was handed over by Bank Chief Executive Mvuselelo Fagutse.
This contribution is a small contribution, but we're saying we're also making a contribution because we're aware of how difficult the situation is out there. And if we don't stand up to make such contributions, who else will? So my advice is let us all go out and do good. Let us all go out and make a contribution. Let our men colleagues join us in this journey. Let us all fight GPV. Let us all fight inequality in the workplace, at home, in families. There is no place for inequality. There is no place for a person that's stronger than the other.
Pastor Kurt Platt, who spoke on behalf of Challenge Ministries, which runs the home, says there is a need for more places of safety for young girls in the country.
You know, when you look at a child who's on the street and you want to take him in and you want to give that child or her a life, one of the first things that comes to your mind is, can I afford to do this? How much is it going to cost? And how many children can we do it for? It's great that we have this place, and it's sad to say that we have got 10, and we max out at about 13 children in our program. And it's sad because when we look at the need that is out there, we are not even close to meeting what is required. And we need more places like this in Eswatini, and not just in Eswatini, but let's focus on home.
Eswatini Women's Center caretaker Pastor Tobile Mnisi says they want the young women to leave the home with skills that will help them put food on the table.
I've heard students who have finished the program before we had introduced the life skills training. They will go back to those toxic environments, go back to those toxic relationships. And each time I will ask them, like, why? After all the 12 years here, and you've been doing very well, but you're going back to this person who's abusing you and all that. And they will always say to me, Mage, because they call me Mage. So this man is able to put food on my table. So now I am saying that will never happen because these ladies, when they finish the program, they will be well equipped.
Some of the young girls shared their testimonies at the event, stating that they were sexually violated by their stepfathers. Others shared that their mothers sold them to prostitution, and this forced them into drug abuse. For Eswatini TV News, Temuni.
Acting Gender and Family Issues Director Nomzamo Dlamini says the National Gender Policy of 2010 is currently under review so it can be aligned with international conventions including climate change. Dlamini said this during Kango's International Women Commemoration 2022.
International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. Observed annually on March 8, International Women's Day is one of the most important days of the year to celebrate women's achievements, raise awareness about women's equality, lobby for accelerated gender parity, fundraise for female-focused charities. The theme of this year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. This day hopes to recognize the contribution of women and girls around the world who are leading the charge on climate change adaptation, mitigation and response to build a more sustainable future for all. Deputy Prime Minister's Office Acting Gender and Family Issues Director Nomzamo Dlamini says the National Gender Policy is currently under review to align it with issues of climate change among other conventions.
Ikhona ipolicy lesinayo lokuhle ke futhi le policy yethu sisayireviewa kuze kukhona ukuthi sikhona kuyi-aligna nemithetho lemisha leshayo bomhlaba hlangene nedivumelane futhi nato letisha njengama SDGs lapho sikhuluma khona nga SDG 13 nje ukhuluma ngabo climate change. So le review process it's an initiative yahulumende yekwenda ukuthi imigomo lekhona even lebukeka kakhulu indzaba dabomake ibe aligned to leyo frameworks lakakhona even at international na ku regional level.
Kango Gender Consortium Vice Chairperson Mandi Sazwane says women are involved in so many projects.
Lasibuka khona ukuthi yini inzima lengadlala bomake nentombatana ukuthi sidile nama impact ale climate change yini lebakwendako already ngoba siyathi ukuthi nje even navale lakithi uningi labakwendako labaningi labakoleka letikotela labakoleka amaplastic for recycling.
The consortium identified women farmers to come and share their stories and how they deal with the effects of climate change, adaptation and mitigation, since women are more affected by climate change. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Viminkosi Nzinisa Stvogotvo.
A 37-year-old man of Gakoza was found hanging at his rental flat at Gakoza. It is suspected that he allegedly hanged himself after his baby mama dumped him, while the other version is that he ended his life after he was retrenched.
There are two versions on why the 37-year-old man of Gakoza ended his life on Monday around 6 p.m. The first version is that he hanged himself after he was allegedly dumped by his baby mama, who has been allegedly paying school fees in Form 3. During an interview with the baby mom, she disputed that the deceased was paying her school fees. However, she confirmed that the two were separated, but they were still in good talking terms. She informs the Eswatini TV News that the deceased is leaving behind his 4-year-old son. She says she last saw the deceased on Monday noon, where he informed her that she was leaving for Johannesburg to search for a job as life was tough. During the interview, the ex-lover of the deceased cried hysterical. Another version is that the deceased committed suicide because he was struggling after him, together with 7 other employees, were retrenched in January this year. Kakoza Community Police Chairperson Phillips Tole says he was informed that the deceased ended his life after he was allegedly dumped by his lover, while another community police, Dumsan Numalo, says he obtained that the deceased ended his life because he was struggling to get a job.
Kukhungela omunye umfana umusha kaMthembu uthi khungela bathi kunokucabana nentombi yakhe ngathi bahlukene kanjalo hawu ngithi mina kusho ukuthi sengazathi bulalele lokho bathi ngathi ngiloko nje nami ngisasesha ngisengakatholi kahle iqiniso ngisengakatholi kahle but ngisalanzelela indawo thola ukuthi
kuyisho akabantu kude ngikwadinga ngive nje bathi ukuthi ushonile ngakhathi endlini kuthi kwendekeni kangado noma nami ngithole information kumkhaya wami ukuthi usukhalelana wathi kushone emuzi manje ngaloku benozansi bekathi sebendela nje njalo ukuchazana lo lathi ngumnakawo lothi kusola ukuthi nce mhlambe ngabe kwentiwa ngokuthi baphelele ngumsebenzi inkinga ngabe linazana ngiloko.
Chief Police Information and Communications Officer Pindile Vilagati confirmed the death of the 37-year-old man of Gakoza who was found hanging from rafters of his rented flat. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Viminkosi Nzinisa Gakoza.
There are unclaimed provident funds belonging to Eswatini ex-miners amounting to 64 million emalangeni. This transpired in a roundtable meeting where the Ministry of Labour and Social Security Principal Secretary John Hlope officially introduced Fair Life Benefit Services as an agent that will help Eswatini ex-miners who want to claim their provident funds in South Africa. Right, moving on. Eswatini will be among the countries that will soon submit the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities to the United Nations. The Acting Director of Social Welfare, Cindy Dube, says submitting the convention is a major milestone for the country as the gaps and achievements have been identified, making it easier to know areas that need strengthening and where resources should be directed.
The Deputy Prime Minister's office has met different stakeholders at Sibane Hotel at Eswatini to validate the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The Acting Director of Social Welfare, Cindy Dube, says Eswatini is expected to submit the report at the United Nations soon. She says according to the Population and Housing Census of 2017, Eswatini has 146,554 people living with disabilities, with 7,332 people living with albinism. She further says the convention looks at what the country has done for people living with disabilities in vast areas, including health, education, and representation in political positions like in the elections, to name a few.
Le report ibuka ngawunye umthetho ukuthi wo vele uyayisupport any disability. Means ibuka tindzaba tebantfwana kuya etikoleni labakhubatekile. Ibuka imkhakha yetemphi. Siyathola lokuthi bayasitakala abantu abakhubatekile. Yebo kusekhona letingcinamba leto letikhona kude umsebenzi ohamba ubebethe tingcinamba. Kubuka netindzaba tekucasha. So yabakhanza uhulumende abacashile abantu abakhubatekile. Kade iPM nje ngicabanga ukuthi baze bangifona akulamanye imatiko.
The president of the Federation of Organizations of Disabled Persons in Eswatini, Bongani Magama, says having the convention submitted to the United Nations to them indicates government's commitment to better the welfare of people living with disabilities. Magama says people with disabilities still face challenges as they are never consulted when things are done for them.
Saye yalesiniketa kokuthi singakhoni ukuthi khuluma ngalokuphelele tindzaba tawo bantu abakhubatekile kwanyalo lesikubonako basacatshangelwa ukuthi yini lengayendeka noma ke babutwe kunye kodwa nakubeseke lolokunye sekuyendiwa njena bangakabuteki kahle.
According to the 2017 Population and Housing Census, of the 146,554 people living with disabilities, 15.1% live in rural areas compared to 8% who live in urban areas. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla with Mbongwa Dube, Zulwini.
There are unclaimed provident funds belonging to Eswatini ex-miners amounting to 64 million emalangeni. This transpired in a roundtable meeting where the Ministry of Labour and Social Security Principal Secretary John Hlope officially introduced Fair Life Benefit Services as an agent that will help Eswatini ex-miners who want to claim their provident funds in South Africa.
Currently, there are 910 Eswatini ex-miners who are working in South African mines who are eligible to make claims from the Mine Workers Provident Fund amounting to 64 million emalangeni. In the year 2018, the fund paid 696 ex-miners over 27 million emalangeni. The fund's operation manager, Prudence Masilela, says the introduction of Fair Life Benefit Services will make it easier for Eswatini ex-miners to claim their provident funds.
Sine ngoba umthetho njengalo bengishilo ukuthi legislations lasiphoqelelako as a fund to make sure ukuthi lencwadi yema unclaimed siyayehlisa siyabafuna abantu siyababhadala ukuthi ke si adopta yipi imode ukuthi sibathole. It's another issue. Now we then felt ukuthi as a business ngoba siya penalizewa mayiloku ihlele nombolo ingehli sase sesicasha ke na ema tracers.
The Minister of Labour and Social Security Principal Secretary John Hlope says government hopes that the involvement of Fair Life Benefit Services will see more ex-miners or beneficiaries making claims.
Iphindze ithathe steps uku-identifya bekatawutsa incetse sitobuyani ngesonke kwendiwe a meaningful into letawuba truthful ubenefite laba lekumele babenefite.
Eswatini National Ex-Miners Association Chairperson Henry Mdluli encourages that there should be good working relationship among all stakeholders.
I-Labour ayimbambe tepa asonzele in order to let into tala maswati akithi kutophumelela kahle.
Fair Life Benefit Services Business Development Manager Zwel Mabuza says they will be searching for ex-miners and beneficiaries from all corners of the country.
Thine sitawube sesiyakhona kusuka phansi siconzelele lapha nithi ihambani khona sifike ke sicollect lawo ma documents lala require mine workers.
There are main two challenges which normally delay issuing of claimed funds. These are dispute among beneficiaries and failure to locate ex-miners. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla with Viminkosi Nzinisa Mbabane.
The Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund urges the youth who have been trained on writing business plans to resubmit their applications so that they may be considered for the next cycle. Speaking in his offices in Babane when giving an update of the training, the Chief Executive Officer Begizo Mazia says the fund has already received a few applications which shows commitment from the youth.
In the past 2 weeks, the Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund trained the youth whose applications for funding under Cycle 8 were not successful on how to draft business plans. The Chief Executive Officer Begizo Mazia gives an update of the training.
This training has been very successful, and the young people who attended the training have alluded to that and were very happy with what they got from the training. A number of them did cite that they now realize where they went wrong on their initial business plans. The expectation now is that they would review their business plans as they have now been trained on how they should have prepared the business plans, together with the other loan requirement documents that were found missing the first time they submitted the application, so that they resubmit to us once again for reassessment and possible funding where it is found viable. We would also wish to state that from the very same group, already 3 young people have resubmitted their applications after the training, and we are already processing their applications, and we are hopeful that they would make it this time, having been better prepared. We wish to implore the young people to take advantage of this kind of capacity building. We have said to them, business plan development is not only meant for youth fund, and it is not only meant for accessing funding. It is a way of preparing yourself and how you can manage and run your business. We would also like to reaffirm as a fund to the young people that one of the mandates that we were given by government, it is to provide funding to the young entrepreneurs, and government has provided us with funding. The only thing is that we are not receiving enough quality business proposals that deserve funding.
To ensure more young people benefit, the fund also conducts business clinics to give the youth more information before they submit their applications. The business clinics are mainly conducted in areas where there is a low success rate of applications. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla with Mbongwa Dube, Mbabane.
And in our international stories, U.S. President Joe Biden has banned all Russian oil imports in the U.S. In his presidential address on Tuesday evening, Biden said they took this decision in consultation with their NATO allies.
We made this decision in close consultation with our allies and our partners around the world, particularly in Europe, because a united response to Putin's aggression has been my overriding focus, to keep all NATO and all of the EU and our allies totally united. We're moving forward with this ban, understanding that many of our European allies and partners may not be in a position to join us. The United States produces far more oil domestically than all the European countries combined. In fact, we're a net exporter of energy. So we can take this step when others cannot. But we're working closely with Europe and our partners to develop a long-term strategy to reduce their dependence on Russian energy as well. Our teams are actively discussing how to make this happen, and today we remain united. We remain united in our purpose to keep pressure mounting on Putin and his war machine. This is a step that we're taking to inflict further pain on Putin. But there will be cost as well here in the United States. I said I would level with the American people from the beginning. And when I first spoke to this, I said defending freedom is going to cost. It's going to cost us as well in the United States. Republicans and Democrats understand that. Republicans and Democrats alike have been clear that we must do this. Over the last week, I've spoken with President Zelensky several times to hear from him about the situation on the ground and to consult and continue to consult with our European allies and about U.S. support for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. We are enforcing the most significant package of economic sanctions in history, and it's causing significant damage to Russia's economy. We're choking off Russia's access to technology like semiconductors and sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come. Major companies are pulling out of Russia entirely without even being asked, not by us. Over the weekend, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they all suspended their services in Russia, all of them.
And now let's have a look at our financial markets.
Standard Bank. It can be.
Good evening once again. You are still watching Eswatini TV. Let's have a look at our sports news. Eswatini Q Sports Association President Muntu Dlamini says Eswatini pool is among the best in the African continent. Dlamini says this is based on the performance of the national team in Zambia during the All-Africa Black Ball Championship Games this past weekend.
Eswatini pool national team returned home from Zambia after taking part of the All-Africa Black Ball Championship Games. According to Eswatini Q Sports President Muntu Dlamini, even though they did not return home with medals and a trophy, but there is a lot they have learned.
kulaba labakhona laba besinabo egroupini lona lo wadlala ifinal waphinde wathatha inkomishi iZambia.
Dlamini says they have already got invitations of some of the countries who they played against during the championships.
Lengikhuluma ngawo le pool sebayidlala at professional level banem professional leagues both men and ladies.
Dlamini says Eswatini was in a tough group against the eventual winners Zambia and neighbor South Africa.
We didn't lose, we learned. Kunengile sekufunzile and kukhona lesibavise kona, and such that emva kwaloko vele kukhona labacela kusivakashela nje bavele baticelela.
Dlamini concluded mentioning that in the next edition to be held either Namibia or South Africa, Eswatini will be looking to return home with a trophy. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera with Linda Dlamini. Pictures sourced from the national team in Zambia.
There are unclaimed provident funds belonging to Eswatini ex-miners amounting to 64 million emalangeni. The chairperson of the Civil Service Commission has given a warning to civil servants leaking private documents. Standard Bank's chief executive officer says men have the responsibility to protect women. And with that, we sum up our bulletin for the evening. Up next is the weather update. From myself and the team, thank you for your company. Good night.